It is time for me to introduce our last speaker of the day, and I can very confidently say that there is never a dull moment with this guy. Most of the day he is negotiating contracts, but has held various leadership roles at Oracle, Salesforce, IBM, Microsoft, you name it. It has been a pleasure working for PASS and Eric Cunningham, so please help me welcome Eric Cunningham, CEO and Chief Customer Officer at PASS.
Test. So before Natalie leaves, this is our first event that we've hosted. A lot of you haven't been to an event, nor have I in a long time. She's a year out of college, and she put this entire event on for the company. And I want to thank all the folks from PASS, data staff, and Vari for helping. But she's the true leader of this. And we really want to thank you for putting this all together today. So thank you, Natalie. So a lot of the things that I was going to talk about, we've kind of already addressed. So we'll get through a lot of these things quicker. But we're going to talk a little strategy today. We're going to talk about the most important asset you have as an employee, which is what? What is it? That's why we have accelerating technology procurement. Let me ask you a question. Who's ever negotiated an ERP contract? Who's ever sold an ERP contract? Carlos, how long does it take for you from the time you present a proposal to a client to the time that they're done signing the deal? How long does that typically take? ERP, called Oracle Financial Cloud. Six months? Long time, isn't it? We got some network guys in here, telco network guys. Scott, how long does it take to do a network refresh contract? Soup to nuts. 3 to 8 months, right? What's the fastest and largest growing expense in a balance sheet? One of the top threes. What is it right now? Mike, what is it? On the balance sheet, what category is one of the fastest pace and largest expense on a balance sheet right now? Talent's one, yeah. Human capital. Marketing's one too. It's an acronym. It starts with an I and ends with a T, right? It's also the hardest to procure, in my opinion. One of the hardest categories to procure. You've heard a lot of subject matter experts over the last 2 days, and they talked about technology and the talent, all the positions out there, how much we're paying chief procurement officers. He or she's at a very highly need right now. But I can tell you that most people that are in procurement, that are buying technology, have never been in a supplier position. We're going to talk about today how suppliers can win. You're over here, suppliers, all right? And the customer can win over here. And we're PASS, we're in the middle. How do suppliers get their deals quicker? And how do clients get the deals that they expect? We're going to talk a little bit about that today. So there is no PhD degree in technology procurement, and there's no master's degree in that. We all know that. It's called experience. We talked about this over dinner the other night. You've really got to, this is a craft that you've got to learn over time and build it together, but you can't do it by yourself. It's also the most understaffed position at a company. We've got clients that have $750 million in indirect tech spend, and they're doing it with 2 category managers. They're missing a huge opportunity, right? Because if they were doing it right, I'm not kidding, 15 to 30% is what we're seeing in savings. So we'll talk about that. So introduction, I think I've went through that. Our companies, everybody knows who PASS is at this point. We appreciate you all participating in this. We'll talk a little bit about all the partners we have here today towards the end. ATP, we hear all the time from customers, hey, how can I do more with less? You know, we're not Officio's here, they do a great job. They're one of our clients. We're not an outsourced procurement organization. We're an extension of IT and procurement's team. That's what we are, right? We're the easy button. We're the company that has the answers to the test when you need to make quick decisions. All right, we're going to talk about the top reasons why clients don't get the best deals. And then we're going to talk about a process that both the supplier and the client can win in. We'll tie it all together. That sound fair? So a little bit about PASS, and we have one salesperson. Stand up. Who's our salesperson? We have one salesperson. We're fortunate. We have a lot of customer referrals, client referrals. We got a lot of good partnerships with some of the strategic SI companies as well. But this is a hot topic, but it's hard to find people that understand how to interpret data. It's hard to find the expertise to understand how to negotiate, and it's hard to understand connecting all those together, because a lot of customers that are out there, the first question I ask them is, who's your executive sponsor from Oracle? Who's your executive sponsor from Rimini Street? Who's your executive sponsor from Verizon, AT&T? I don't have one. It's the first place you need to start. We'll talk about why here in a minute. We serve clients in 12 different industries. Government, Social Security network. We're doing private equity, you've heard over the last couple of days. We're doing global clients. We're doing a $1 billion negotiation for an AWS deal in South Korea right now. We're doing Woolworths out of South Africa. And I don't know how they find us, but they find us. But deals are deals, right? And Bennett said this earlier, and I heard, I think Michael said this maybe last night. It doesn't matter what size of a company you are. Deals are done on a need from the supplier side of it. I've seen smaller companies get better deals than bigger companies. I see it every day. That's all I do is negotiate contracts. So think about that. And then lastly on here, you know, the outcomes is really what the customers are looking for. So that 180-day negotiation that Carlos was talking about, or Scott was talking about, you know, most companies don't have that time to put in up front. But at the end of the day, the deals are great, the pricing's great, the terms and conditions are great, but that's the ultimate outcome is the best contract. Based on the nature of your business. If you're a PE company, you need language like Bert talked about, rebalancing, termination in favor, chronic unavailability, M&A buffers. These are all the things that you can't rely on your sourcing people to have all the answers to those tests. That's why companies like us are in place today. So let's talk about the biggest challenge. By selling to a client, all right, and then procuring as well. The biggest challenge is this. It's alignment. So any sales reps in here? Steve, who do you work for? Okay. So you go through sales methodology classes all the time, right? Who are you selling to up on those on the far right in the blue boxes? Everybody, right? So if you work for the company, right? We have any CIOs in here? Okay, we got a CIO over here. Jason, when Steve's out there selling and he's selling to everybody in your business, what do you think he's doing? Is he getting the same answer from everybody? No. Business, all they care about is, hey, Steve, you're getting the deal. I don't care what it costs. I've already selected you. You're getting the deal. That's what they're saying. Procurement, how are they measured? Right? They're measured on service in the business, sometimes with cost, most of the time with supply chain. They've got to get deals through their process. Finance, all they care about savings. In IT, well, IT's job is to go out and make sure that what your business requirements align to that technology supplier that we're buying today. All right? So if you're a client, the last thing you want is 4 different answers to Steve. Steve's a smart guy. Been doing this stuff for a long time. Steve understands when he's being told, I'm not going to source this to anybody else. This is your deal. Oh, Steve, this is the budget. This is what we can pay. Steve already has a bird in hand. There's no incentive for Steve to give Jason a better deal at this point. It's the number one issue we see in companies. There's no alignment. People are coming in and leaving. A lot of positions are changing. So the first thing we do is we establish alignment within our clients today. Right? That hinders the problem. These are the 6 problems, and the first 3 we'll come back to, but we've already heard data, expertise, and network. We sole source. We find a supplier and say we want that supplier. You've heard, I think it was Michael yesterday, he talked about, you go out, there's a lot of these cloud, somebody's got a Teams call. We got these cloud providers that are out there that are PE backed. How many cloud providers that are PE backed last year that, let's call it $50 million in revenue and below, went out of business or were acquired? What percentage you guys think? Over half. Okay? Over half. Just an interesting stat about Michael, who was up here before. How much of IT procurement is now running through the channel? Technology procurement that you're buying through the channel. Across the board. This is data that we benchmark all the time. Take a crazy guess. Dave, what do you think? Dave Morgan. How much? Was that 10? 78%. Insight. That's why Insight, these guys at Insight, SHI, CDW, it's huge. I was just standing out in the hallway with Chris Donato from Celonis. He goes, can you introduce me to your top 3 channel providers? We do a lot with system integrators, but we want to take Celonis into this new market. Jeff Grossman, is he in the room here? Jeff and I were just talking out there about Oracle's channel process. It's going to only get bigger and bigger, right? They take all the risk. Oracle gets paid quicker. Celonis gets paid quicker. Insufficient value calibration. What's that mean? Justin, what's that mean? Yeah, well, we're not, so when we have 4 different people giving you 4 different answers, right, there's no alignment there, and you're making decisions on the wrong technology. We have this happen all the time. Who's bought stuff in the last 12 months and said, oh, I shouldn't have bought that, I should have bought the other thing? I have. Anyone else done that? Right? Why? Because you rush, because you got pressure or you need to have something in place. And then, I love this one. We like to get involved when we hear this is our best deal. This is our best deal. I would give the advice to the suppliers when they say this is our best deal, you better make sure that you have that from your EVP of sales, because you're going to look goofy, because that EVP of sales, he or she, is going to give something at the end if they're not plugged into it today. It's a fact. They're going to give something at the end. Let's talk about top 3. We beat data to death. Bennett, head of product development, data. Eats, sleeps, and breathes data every day. And the inconsistencies across suppliers, industries, and regions is so bizarre, and it's really driven based upon what I would call that territory VP, SVP of sales. Based on industry, based on region, it's different. They all run their business different. A lot of it, they all have their own P&L. They run their own business. At the end of the day, they're measured quarterly, monthly, whatever the case may be. But the difference discounts, people talk about the discounts in, the 4 regions of the United States. If you did a workday deal and it's the same configuration, and we threw out a quote to each of those SVPs at workday across the United States, we would get 4 different types of pricing, and it would vary 15 to 20%. That's why you need data, right? How many workday deals are you doing a year? Maybe 1, right? That workday rep is doing 15. That RVP that he or she works for is doing 45. That SVP that they work for is doing 125. They do a lot of deals. They're good at what they do. You heard some of the clients talk about that. They're really good at what they do, right? Expertise, right? It goes into, we call this why I think we're successful at Pass is we've all worked at these suppliers. You know, EMC, IBM, Microsoft, Oracle. We understand the mindset of the supplier. We understand how suppliers are measured, and we're empathetic to that. And our job is we'll sit there and tell a supplier, we've never missed an end date for a supplier. As long as they're up front with us, we'll be up front with them, right? But you've got to understand what they're going through. You know, we heard a couple people talk about before, the regional manager or sales rep will say, this is the best I can do. I'm not going to be able to do anything else, you know. And what we're going to talk about is some tactics and some strategy on how you can help enable them, because that is the best they can do without sending an approval up and getting to the right people to get that concession made. I like this slide. I'm not going to belabor on it, but I actually thought that was Gartner out there trying to get in the window when we heard that loud noise. They weren't invited. But here's what I would tell you right now. The expertise piece of this. Has anyone used Gartner before in this room? Everybody use Gartner? How long does it take to get Gartner on the phone to have a strategy call? Does anybody know? Dave, you used Gartner before? You talk to your Gartner. Could you get them on the phone in a week? Week or more, right? Do you have a week to wait? You need top-of-mind information to be able to execute your outcomes. So we did a little analysis, because we're a data company, right, Bennett, of some of their top negotiators that they tout. And I know you guys, you can see it up here. The mega suppliers, where they've worked at. Oracle, Microsoft, and you guys can look at the chart. The thesis that came back is if you want to buy a calculator, they have a couple guys that worked at Texas Instruments. That's it. You want to buy technology, we'll sit down and have a conversation with you. But it's the data piece of it, the expertise piece of it, and then the last piece is the network. Right? We got a lot of suppliers here today. They didn't come because they don't like us. They come because they're also our partners. Right? We all want to work together to get to the final outcome that you're expecting as clients, and the final outcome that you're expecting as a supplier as well, too. Let me back up real quick. On the relationships, I've heard, you know, hey, let's get rid of that person, or let's make a change, and we don't like that person. That's never, that's not how we think. We think that, hey, let's have a conversation about the sales rep. Let's have a conversation about the value, right? Because remember that misalignment slide that we had with talking about 4 different business units? Somebody on that misalignment slide over to the right has a pretty good relationship. And the sales rep needs to make sure that they're accommodating all 4 of those areas. But essentially, all the communications need to be centralized through one of those particular areas. With customers, they, you know, I don't like the word vendor. You'll never hear me say the word vendor. I hate it. It's a horrible name. Their suppliers are strategic partners, right? Because Bert said it before. You're going to be able to identify who's going to be with you. He talked about the marriage, right? If you're not, the dating's not going well, the marriage isn't going to go well. That's how it is here. But the really good salespeople are going to be the ones that actually care about you and care about the outcomes you're going to be at. You need to reciprocate that to them as well, too. Those are lifetime relationships. And a lot of lifetime relationships I'm talking about are people sitting in this room that I've worked with as well. All right, so let's talk about how we can take that 180 days to 30 days or less. All right, so here's what happens. Clients will come to us with a proposal or an agreement. We'll run it through our platform. Bennett talked about past forensics. We'll do a benchmark thesis on pricing. The next thing we'll do is we'll look at the business terms and the legal terms. And we have another platform that benchmarks all that. So that'll formulate what we call your entire comprehensive benchmark. Once we have that in place, we're going to put together a counteroffer. We'll give you some counteroffer tips here in a minute. So here's our benchmark thesis. We have 3 different flavors of it. Bennett said price check on aisle 4. I like how he said that. Price check on aisle 4. I need something real quick. I'm buying Adobe 10 license, 20 license. It's transactional. It's a click-through agreement. I don't have a CSA or an MSA. It's got to be quick. We're going to come back to you, and we're going to say, based upon what we've seen in the marketplace today, based upon the region, boom, boom, boom. Here's what we think you can get, low end. Here's what we think you can get, top end. Who are you talking to? When do they need to deal by? When do you need to do the deal by? Very simple. Not a lot of strategy, although it's probably a lot more than what most people are doing. Comprehensive, that's where we're going to peel out the terms and conditions. So if you're an M&A shop and you don't have an M&A buffer in your Oracle deal, Oracle perpetual license or whatever you're buying, you want to put that in there. Anyone know what an M&A buffer is? Other than the Oracle guys. We might not want to talk about it. You want to know why we're not going to talk about it? Because Oracle doesn't offer you an M&A buffer, so why would you know what it is? That's why you need companies that can help you with that. Rebalancing. We talked about that earlier. These don't come out of standard. Workday's not going to offer rebalancing language. It doesn't come out of their standard agreement. So why would you know that you can get that? These are great terms and conditions that's going to protect the interest of your organization and mitigate the risk. We talked earlier about a group of us over there about Inspire Brands. If you think of Inspire Brands, they're just continuing to buy companies and putting them underneath the holding company called Inspire Brands. Imagine managing the technology assets and the decisions making when you don't have any visibility of it. It's really difficult to do that. But if you have language in your agreement where you can spin in and spin out companies, it's really not as painful as it could be. Competitive benchmarks. You want to start maybe looking at, the supplier's not doing it. Maybe you're looking at something different. Start this a year out. Minimum 6 months. I'm looking at Infor. I'm looking at Workday, Oracle, SAP, right? I want to know, here's my configuration pass. Come back to me and tell me what I can expect to pay relative to the cloud license. And then come back to me and tell me what I can expect to pay relative to SI fees, which are going to supersede the license, and anything else that I might want to look at. And what's my internal labor cost going to be? What else should I be considering this? Is there identity management that I should look at? What about a help desk? What about workflow? We're going to come back to you with a massive document that's going to give you details of what cost looks like. So you can take that in instead of telling your board of directors, hey, I think it's going to be 15 to 20 million. You can go in and say, hey, listen, we validated this with a company out there that has relevant data. This is what they do. We think that we could be within this area with a 10% swing either way. Make sense? So when suppliers come to the clients, they need deals done. The suppliers need to understand that the clients have to take a lot of things into consideration to get deals done, specifically larger deals. We're talking about cash outlay payments. We're talking about the tax analysis. Mike talked yesterday about tax. I got my eyes opened up on tax yesterday. Hopefully you guys got a nice little tax education there and some tips. The total cost of ownership. Who's in procurement here? Raise your hand if you do procurement. What's your name, sir? Robert. When you go to buy something of certain value, don't you have to put together an analysis to make sure you take it up to your leadership team to get approval on that, or can you make that decision on the fly? What kind of items do they look for to make sure that you're justifying it correctly? These types of things, right? Right, so suppliers need to understand, hey, I need a deal done in 24 hours. If you're going to ask for that 24-hour deal, you better ask for that 15 days, middle of the month, right? Because it takes a lot to get deals approved internally as well. I'm dealing with a very large grocery company right now, and Russ and I were talking this morning, and they get a lot of pressure. Let me give you a little tip. I sold, and there's strategies on the sellers too where the client wants their proposals, they want their best and final deals. You give it to them 3 days left in the month and you expect it to get it done. That's not a good business partner. On the flip side of it, clients, You need to understand waiting until the end of the month to sign a deal doesn't mean anything anymore to the suppliers, especially if you're a cloud provider. Why? Those days have come and gone. Recognizing revenue on a perpetual license, I love doing these big deals at Oracle and do a 36-month deal, 48-month deal. We get paid for it all up front back in the day. Now it's based upon an operating, you're leasing the license, so they're getting paid 1 month in the rears for cloud. So if you do a 36-month deal at Oracle right now and you're buying their HCM platform, they're only recognizing 1 month at a time. So you holding the deal, customers holding the deal doesn't do you any favors, right? Once you find what you like, you got to strike for it. Okay? Counteroffers, right? Sales reps. We used to do this process that's changed. Microsoft had a process and had one at Salesforce, and who can forget HQ app at Oracle, where you would have to write up a justification to get a better deal or a concession on a term or whatever the case may be. They call it, what is it called? Uncommon terms or I forget exactly what it is. But the counteroffer templates. We give you what they want to know. We give the clients what the suppliers want to know. That's how the sales rep can take that, he or she can take that, attach that, send it up through the approval process so they understand there's actually some logic behind what the customer's asking for. I'm going to tell you, there's two different sales reps. There's good ones and there's bad ones. Okay? Back in the day, when I worked at Microsoft, I knew that the guy sat right down the hall from me. He'd say, "Hey, I couldn't get that deal approved. How did you get yours approved?" And I'm not claiming to be a good sales rep, but I got my deal approved. Couldn't get his deal approved. Why? Because there's no confidence that whether or not they give that price to that other that bad sales rep, that he or she's going to get the deal done. Right? So we make it easy. Good or bad, we put the logic in there because there's certain sales reps that can't get the attention of leadership to get a deal done. Especially at the end of a quarter, end of the year, the volumes are so high. You know, how many times have sales reps said to you, "Hey, if this deal doesn't happen this year, it's going to change next year"? Come on, let's be clear. It might change to get better next year because everyone has a Q1 number, right? So these are counteroffer templates that we put in play for the customer based upon each supplier, top suppliers we deal with, which are 250. We got 11,000 in the platform, but 250 common suppliers, those templates are already written out. Before I thank everybody, we'll open up the Q&A real quick and don't hold back. Anybody have any questions? Yeah, Rick. So the question is, would we get involved and with the client and say that might not be the right solution for you? We don't do that. We're not, we let the client make the decision. Now, if they come to us, I was having a conversation with a gentleman over here and say, who's the top 3 competitors we should consider? We'll put out a competitive thesis for them. So it's like a white space, features, functions, what's their balance sheet look like, what kind of relationship, who runs sales, development team, stats specifically. But we never advise a client of what technology to buy, nor will we. Right? We got to be agnostic to that. Good question. What other questions do we have? Yes, sir.
So if you cause suppliers to take a haircut, why do they like working with you?
Oh, that's a great question. Why are they here? Why are they here today? So the short answer is we started out today about time. How much time do you have? So typically when we get on the phone, we're negotiating with, we'll do a year 250 Microsoft deals. We're not negotiating, this is not to take any offenses. We're negotiating those deals probably with the sales op people at Microsoft. Now we have one-offs throughout the year as well too, but the volume that we're negotiating, and they know if we give them a call, they're going to get a deal. But here's what's really interesting to that question. It's the suppliers aren't told to go give you what they know they can give you. I've got guys on my team that worked at, I won't say the name of the companies, but I've got a lot of we have a lot of CIOs that work for us, and I've sold to them, or some of our other teams sold to them. And we sit around and we have a beer and we say, we never gave you the best deal, right? They know where they can go, right? But typically, what their position is, the supplier's position to the client is, oh, your net effective discount, the last deal was 45. So that's their justification of getting a good deal. 45 might be nothing close to what they could have gotten on the last deal, right? We call that the, what do we call that, Justin? Where you fall into quicksand approach. But we get deals done quicker, right? And quite frankly, that counteroffer template right here, that's helpful for our suppliers, and I think if you talk to them, they would tell you that. We're writing their business justification of why they should give the concession to the client. And as you can see, the last one on here, I don't know if it's on here. If an agreement is reached, PASS will work with its client to accelerate signatures on the agreement. Isn't that what every supplier wants to hear about? The end of the rainbow, right? So we're guaranteeing if we can get to this is an example. There's a lot of different examples here, but this is an example of a counteroffer template that we customize for each supplier. What other questions? The question is it an on-prem deal? That matters, right? On-prem additional license. No one's buying on-prem technology, new stuff, at least that I'm aware of. So they would recognize that full deal up front if it's on-prem, right? There's guys like Mike Faberjanic at Oracle and Peter and those guys, or PJ Maloney, they'll sell you all that stuff. Now, if it's cloud, right, you'll hear sometimes the client will say, hey, we know you don't want to invoice, so we'll provision it 30 days from today, right? When you install, we talk about Oracle, but we talk about anyway, many of the platforms, when you go in, they'll provision your keys. Once you provision and turn the platform on, the clock starts ticking, unless they negotiate that, and that's where we help out as well. But they don't recognize that revenue until a month after. If it's a 36-month contract, and what are we in right now? We're in March, and they started in March, they won't recognize any revenue in March until April 1st. It's 30 days in arrear. That's why holding it to the end makes 0 sense, right? And it goes back to the initial thing, time. It is, but there's still people out there that think that they're going to wait out a software provider till the end and get the best deal. It doesn't happen. Like, we did 3,500 benchmarks last year. I don't know how many deals we did. I know how much money we've saved. And the best deals get done when there's executive alignment, right? And there's a mutual close plan in place. What do I need to do as a supplier? What do I need to do as a client? And those are the best relationships that end up being those marriages that you want. Yeah, they're still measured, obviously, by the street, so they've got to do that. But there is a little pressure on time because, Michael, so the business needs to have the product up and running, right? There is a business problem that's why they're buying that software, right? So there is some pressure there, and that's where the visibility, and that's why I think it's important. Salespeople need to have, they need to understand those 4 pillars, or maybe there's 6, I don't know. But at the end of the day, on the negotiation side of it, at the end, they need to be talking to one. It's procurement. Like if there's segregations of duties now. There's all these other different things out there. IT dipping in and negotiating deals. Those are the deals that we love to see because they're horrible deals, right? IT needs to be running IT in many shops that we see nowadays. But the procurement, the recognition of the timing side of it is, they got to get deals to deliver back for the business. They got to get those done. But I've seen suppliers, 3 days left in the year, they say, we're not even going to process your order because we can't even recognize the revenue. Like, depends on the volume. It really does. What other questions do we have? We had a consulting company before that. It's called Receptio, right? So we'd work for these big SIs, and we'd take a penny, and they'd take the 99 cents. And at the time, our CTO had said, we need to build a platform, and we can really monetize what we're doing here. And then we can deliver quicker outcomes from our clients. We initially started with just pricing data on software. And just so we're clear, we focus on technology and credit card merchant only. We're not the company that can do all of your categories, right? In fact, most of those companies that say that, we actually sell them our data. So we just focus on the technology category. But once we build it out, our platform is Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. We love it. It's every client gets an instance called Pass 360 that all their spend data goes into. There's 5 modules in the platform that they exchange the data, so it's private. We don't have to worry about any data flying around, so it's uploaded. You upload a contract in Pass 360. One of our analysts gets a notification. He or she will take that notification, and the clock starts ticking. It's 24 hours for a price check on aisle 4, right? Comprehensive or 48 hours. And then if you want a competitive one, it could be more than 72 hours, but it's typically 72 hours, depending on how much work we have to put into and how many competitors we have to look at. Answer your question? Thanks. Yes? Yeah, so I think I heard you, but you talked a little bit about the assignment divestiture clauses and contracts. Yes. And by the way, thanks for speaking up. I will tell you this. There's another powerful choice out there too, and it's called third party. And it's really disrupting the business, and it's delivering value to the clients at no risk. I mean, you look at Origina's in the room here. You see some of the companies we got here. Rimini Street's here. They got a lot of clients in Pittsburgh. They got a lot of clients across the globe. We're on the phone with their executive team, on a daily basis. So that gives you another option that you might not want, and you might not be getting any more value out of your on-prem, and you might have that, visibility or vision to go to cloud over the next 6 year, whatever, 2 years. It's an easy option. It's an easy button for me, but you got to make sure the stars align on pricing, or not on pricing, but where you're at on the version of the platforms as well. Assignment divestiture, we every deal we do will have that type of language in it. It just gives you that flexibility. If it's an on-prem deal, there's shelving language. But yeah, that gives the customer a tremendous amount of flexibility. You heard from the private equity group before in here. They may or may not have had that in most of their contracts. You can read the tea leaves, but it just gives so much more flexibility. And if you ask the right way and you can explain why you need that language to the supplier, truth be told, you might get what you asked for. But if you have an old contract, it's tough for them to reconsider putting all that stuff in there. So you get one chance to get your CSA right. You get one chance to get your pricing right. You get one chance to get all those terms and conditions right. ERP deals are every 10, 15 years, something like that. What's a network refresh? How often network refresh? 3 to 5 years. Got to get them right. Any other questions? All right, real quick. I want to thank all the partners. This is our first time we've done the event, and it means a lot. Everybody's invested a lot of their time, right? So we appreciate that. But if you're in the room and I call the name of your company, please stand up real quick and just introduce yourself to everybody, if you wouldn't mind. And I'll start with my guy up front from Ariaka. I saw AT&T, but they in the room here? AT&T's in the back. Feel free to say hi to them. Salonis, I believe, I don't know if Justin's still here from Salonis. It was an interesting presentation. Emerge Markets. I think they had a little thing that they already did in the back, right, Nat? Granite. Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Ian. You guys have been a great partner. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it. I noticed Oracle's not on there. That's a mistake. But Oracle, Carlos, we want to introduce yourself to the team. They had it out. Okay. Verizon?
Eric, Verizon's
That's right. I think we're gonna get things closed up here, but there is gonna be snacks on the way out. And from the bottom of our hearts, we really appreciate you guys that made your time here. All the speakers, I still see some people here. Mark, great job. Some of the speakers, Mike. I don't know if I see anyone else here, but it was great. And by the way, these, the stats are, Marcus, how many people did we have at one point on the live stream today? Over 700 on the live stream, so that'll be going out. So a lot of the content will be repurposed for you guys as well. But travel safe, and you can stick around for a little bit if you want to continue to network. And once again, thanks. Appreciate it.